In the 20th century, we fought wars over oil. In the 21st century, we will fight wars over water. This is not speculation. This is math. And the math is terrifying. Here are the numbers. Only 5% of Earth's water is fresh water. Of that 5%, nearly 70% is locked in glaciers and ice caps. That leaves less than 1% of all water on Earth available for human use. Rivers, lakes, underground aquifers. That is it. That 1% must supply 8 billion people. It must supply all agriculture. It must supply all industry. And that 1% is running out. Right now, 2 billion people live in countries experiencing high water stress. By 2030, half the world's population will live in water-stressed regions. By 2050, 5 billion people could face water shortages. These are not activist predictions. These are United Nations projections. The global water crisis is not coming. It is here. And it is accelerating. The problem is not just scarcity. The problem is geography. Water does not respect borders. Rivers cross multiple countries. Aquifers sit under multiple territories. Rainfall varies by region. Some nations have abundant water. Others have almost none. And this creates a strategic problem. Nations that control water have power. Nations that depend on water from upstream neighbors are vulnerable. Think about what water controls. Agriculture requires water. No water means no food. Industry requires water. No water means no manufacturing. Hydroelectric power requires water. No water means no electricity. Cities require water. No water means no livable urban areas. Human survival requires water. No water means mass migration or death. Water is not just a resource. Water is the foundation of civilization. And that foundation is cracking. Let me walk you through the major flashpoints. The regions where water scarcity is creating geopolitical tension, where competition for water resources could lead to conflict. These are not hypothetical scenarios. These are real disputes with real military implications. Flashpoint 1. The Nile River. The Nile flows through 11 countries, but 85% of the water comes from Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is building the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the largest hydroelectric dam in Africa. This dam will give Ethiopia control over the flow of the Nile. Egypt downstream depends on the Nile for 90% of its fresh water. Egypt has 100 million people, all concentrated along the Nile. Egypt has said, explicitly, that any threat to its water supply is an existential threat. Egypt has stated it will use military force if necessary to protect its water access. Ethiopia is filling the dam. Egypt is preparing for conflict. This is not rhetoric. Egypt has conducted military exercises simulating strikes on the dam. Ethiopia has positioned air defenses around the dam. Sudan sits in the middle, torn between its upstream and downstream neighbors. The Nile dispute is a powder keg. One drought, one diplomatic failure, and you have a war that could destabilize North and East Africa. Flashpoint 2. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These rivers flow from Turkey through Syria and Iraq. Turkey controls the headwaters. Turkey has built massive dams. The Southeast Anatolia project, 22 dams and 19 power plants. These dams give Turkey control over water flow to Syria and Iraq. Syria and Iraq, downstream, face severe water shortages. Iraqi marshes, once fertile wetlands, are drying up. Syrian agriculture is collapsing. Millions are migrating due to water scarcity. Turkey uses water as leverage. Turkey has reduced water flow during droughts. Turkey has threatened to cut water entirely during conflicts. Water is a weapon, and downstream countries have no good options. They cannot force Turkey to release water. They cannot find alternative sources. They either accept Turkish control or go to war. So far, they have accepted control, but as water becomes scarcer and populations grow, acceptance may turn to desperation, and desperation leads to conflict. Flashpoint 3. The Indus River. The Indus flows from China through India and Pakistan. China controls the Tibetan plateau where the river originates. India and Pakistan share the Indus through the Indus Waters Treaty, one of the most successful water-sharing agreements in history. But this agreement is under strain. India is building dams and diverting water. Pakistan, downstream, accuses India of violating the treaty. Pakistan's agriculture depends on the Indus. Pakistan faces a water crisis. Population growth is outpacing water supply. India and Pakistan are nuclear powers. They have fought multiple wars. Kashmir, the disputed territory, sits in the Indus watershed. Water adds another dimension to an already dangerous conflict. If India significantly reduces Pakistan's water access, Pakistan faces an existential threat. Would Pakistan accept the slow strangulation of its water supply? Or would Pakistan escalate to preserve its survival? These are the questions that keep strategists awake at night. Meanwhile, China is building dams on the upper Indus and other rivers flowing from Tibet into India. China has not signed water-sharing agreements with India. China could, in theory, divert these rivers. This gives China leverage over India. In a conflict scenario, China could threaten India's water supply. Water becomes a strategic asset, a tool of coercion, and in a region with nuclear weapons, any additional pressure point increases miscalculation risk. Flashpoint 4. The Jordan River. Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and the Palestinian territories all depend on the Jordan River Basin. This is one of the most water-stressed regions on Earth. Israel controls most of the water resources. Israel has developed advanced water technology. Desalination, drip irrigation, water recycling. Israel has made itself relatively water secure, but its neighbors have not. Jordan is facing acute water shortages. Jordan's population has doubled due to refugees from Syria and Iraq. Jordan's aquifers are being depleted faster than they recharge. Jordan depends on Israeli water supply deals. The Palestinian territories are even more dependent. Israel controls access to water resources in the West Bank. Water allocation is a constant source of tension. Water is a tool of control, and as populations grow and climate change reduces rainfall, competition intensifies. This is not just a Middle East humanitarian issue. This is a strategic issue. Water scarcity drives migration. Water scarcity drives radicalization. Water scarcity drives conflict. The Syrian civil war was preceded by the worst drought in Syria's recorded history. Farmers lost their livelihoods. Rural populations migrated to cities. Social tensions exploded. Water scarcity did not cause the civil war, but it created the conditions for it. And this pattern will repeat. Flashpoint 5. Central Asia. 5 countries depend on rivers flowing from the mountains of Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. During the Soviet Union, water was managed centrally. After the Soviet collapse, cooperation broke down. Upstream countries want to build dams for hydroelectric power. Downstream countries need water for agriculture. Cotton and wheat production in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan depend on these rivers. Disputes have turned violent. Ethnic conflicts in the Fergana Valley, one of the most densely populated areas, have water competition as a component. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have skirmished over water and territory. These are not stable states. These are fragile post-Soviet countries with authoritarian governments. Water disputes could destabilize the entire region. And Russia and China both have interests in Central Asia. Regional water conflicts could draw in major powers. Now let me explain why this is getting worse. 3 forces are colliding: population growth, climate change, and over-extraction. Each force alone would create problems. Together, they create a crisis. Population growth is straightforward. More people need more water. The global population is projected to reach 10 billion by 2050. Most of this growth is in water-stressed regions. Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, South Asia. These regions already face water shortages. Adding billions more people increases demand catastrophically. There is no new water supply. The same rivers and aquifers must serve far more people. This is a zero-sum game. More for one user means less for another. Climate change is altering precipitation patterns. Some regions get more rain, others get less. Droughts are becoming more frequent and severe. Glaciers that feed major rivers are melting. In the short term, this increases flow. In the long term, once glaciers are gone, rivers will run dry during summer months. The Himalayas feed rivers that supply 2 billion people. As Himalayan glaciers disappear, India, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, and Southeast Asia face catastrophic water shortages. Climate change also increases evaporation. Higher temperatures mean more water evaporates from reservoirs, rivers, and soil. Agricultural irrigation becomes less efficient. Water that previously supported crops now evaporates before it can be used. This compounds the scarcity problem. You need more water to produce the same amount of food, but you have less water available. Extraction is depleting aquifers. Underground water reserves that took thousands of years to accumulate are being pumped out in decades. The Ogallala Aquifer in the United States, one of the world's largest, is being depleted. Water levels have dropped by over 100 feet in some areas. Once an aquifer is depleted, it can take thousands of years to refill. Some aquifers are fossil water. They do not recharge. Once gone, they are gone forever. India is pumping groundwater at unsustainable rates. Over half of India's aquifers are in critical condition. Pakistan is doing the same. The Middle East is draining its aquifers. Saudi Arabia depleted its aquifers for wheat production. Saudi Arabia has now stopped wheat farming and imports food instead. But not every country can afford to import food. And not every country has oil revenues to cushion the transition.